here's an excellent ride that we did just along the Kennet Avon Canal, starting not very far from Reading and Newbury. So we started at Aldermaston Wharf, worked our way around really along the canal the whole way. Pardon my printer that seems to be making a noise. There were a couple of places where we had no choice about stopping, and then we had lunch at around a lake. Then we worked our way on into Newbury. I wouldn't recommend this little bit, and back round the outside. In truth, I would have gone a little bit further and then turned round and gone back again, because the road bit wasn't much good. So we gave up and rejoined the canal for that last little bit. So as you can see, it's the loop that I wouldn't recommend down here. So that loop that's on the left is really, it's not particularly pleasant. It goes around the aircraft, the airfield that you can see there. But I really would recommend the main bit. Now we started just up near Aldermaston Wharf. There was plenty of car parking around that pond. It looks like an old gravel pit or clay pit. So we worked our way out from there. We joined the road, and really what we're looking for is this bridge. It's right there, and we just cross over it, and then we join straight onto the canal almost immediately. Follow your way down, and it's really quite pretty. You'll see that the colours are absolutely spot on down here. It was a lovely warm day, and the only problem really is that the growth on the side, there's a lot of hogweed and stuff, and that was leaning out over. So the track isn't quite as well controlled as other places. Here we've crossed over, and we're now on the other side and running through a bit of agricultural land, and the track is quite narrow. So it's not like the Basingstoke Canal where the surface is beautifully made up. This surface was very muddy, and fortunately it was a dry day. Now it's improved again, and you'll see that it's in a much better condition just here. The canal is winding round. It's not particularly straight, it's more river-like at this point. We go over this bridge. This is one of the more fixed bridges. Many of them are swivel bridges, but you can see there's plenty of space over this section, but it is bumpy. There's a lot of roots that come from the trees, and a lot of changes there, and quite a few gates and roads that we had to cross over, but that's not surprising really with these old canals. This was probably the most peaceful bit alongside the canal boats, and I love this because you can chat with the owners of the boats, and there was plenty to see. And at this point we could see a boat actually going through, one of the longest canal boats I think I saw on the canal that day. Slightly lower quality. This one was recorded in 720p. But you can see it's a swing bridge, and these are fascinating to look at, and the pilots of the boats usually jump out and swing the bridge across. So here we are, we cross over it again, and now we work our way down. Again, the nettles here were leaning out, and it wasn't particularly pleasant in places. We were wearing shorts, it was a really hot day. So we work our way along, and you'll see that there's quite a lot of routes that come, and we go over a swing bridge ourselves. The swing bridges are usually left shut, which is great, and then we follow past a little bit of residential and more butterbur was on the right, and lovely wildflowers that we've got in these sections. Now we go under the bridge, and we now follow on a slightly more formal part of the towpath, but again one of the locals said that this was quite wet cycling along here when after it's rained, because the vegetation just leans in from the side. The quality of the surface here is really quite nice, and suddenly it's improved dramatically, but do watch out, as I say, if it's been wet then there's a lot of stuff leaning out, and there's a lot of fishermen there as well with their poles across the path. But this section's not too bad at all. Not too many people walking down it either, but you can see it's closing in a little bit as we go along, and we did get stung a few times. So I would recommend wearing slightly longer trousers. Now we're crossing the road here, and this is quite a difficult crossing because there's a lot of traffic waiting there, and then when we get there there's this enormous bar right the way across the track, and in theory you can take your bike through that little chicane, but when you've got a tandem you haven't. But fortunately somebody helped us carry it over. And then this is a slightly wider bit of track here that we've got that's a bit more packed in terms of gravel, and there are plenty of places actually around to stop. If you wanted to stop round here for lunch, you can see that there's bits of grass on the left and the right, but we carried on and we found somewhere else, because on the right of the screen here there's actually some lakes beginning to appear. So it looks like we're going fast and pushing people out the way, but actually we were going quite slowly. And the key point to look out for is this bridge that we've got, which is the point at which we departed. But this is a nice bit of surface here, it's very well maintained. We get underneath that bit of bridge, and then it's at this one that we stopped. And what we have done is we've left the canal, which you can see in the bottom left hand corner, and then we headed up around. We took a little detour because we weren't quite sure where that was leading to. We just wanted somewhere to stop for lunch, and in the end we went out to Thatcham Lake and worked our way round Thatcham Lake, stopped at the back, have a picnic, looking at the ducks. And so if we just follow our way through, waiting for people, there's a bit of a boardwalk, and generally the quality of the path down here is not too bad at all. And we work our way round towards the lake. A few crossings here. What you have to try and do is get round the back. Now what we're not going to do is to take that other little path there. So you can see now we're heading around the back of all the lakes. Actually, I'm not quite sure what that little picture's doing. I'll have to move that. So this is where we stopped and we had our lunch, and you can see it's rather nice. And then we just carried on around the lake, just out of interest really, as much as anything. So this is round the back of Thatcham Lake. You'll see I've turned the quality down now to HD, because I thought that we'd done the bulk of the canal, but we do have a bit more. So we now head our way back across. Retrace our steps back to that big bridge, which we'll get to any minute now. There'll be a bit of boardwalk, and here we go. There's the boardwalk, here's the bridge, and a bit of a tight turn to get the bike round, but we carry on along the towpath along here, cross the bridge, and now we have to go into the housing estate. So we work our way into the housing estate, and that's really just to get round this break in the canal. So there is a little bit of road here, and we're just heading up to back, essentially cutting round the industrial development and then back onto the towpath. So we're not on here for very long before we leave, sadly actually, because it was rather nice. Now I would recommend keep going as far as you possibly can, rather than follow the route round and then just retrace your steps. But here we've just getting towards the end of the section that's navigable, and we got to this weird bridge which we crossed over, and that one wasn't too bad. But the next one that comes here, we had told that we had to go up, so we went up and we went over, and the aim was to go through the boatyard because that's what the public footpath was. But you'll see that it's completely blocked. You have to push the button to get someone to come. There were other people there trying to get through, but no, it was all locked up. So in the end we gave up, headed back over the bridge, and then carried on along the canal for a small amount more, but it wasn't very long. So I would recommend here that you just turn around and head back, because it's quite pretty. But we will show you the rest of the route that we took, which is through the town of Newbury. And the first bit wasn't too bad, but there was a lot of traffic here, and I know some people say that Newbury is a lovely town, but when you're on a tandem and you're trying to get through it, and there's just cars everywhere. It's a disgusting place, so I wouldn't recommend cycling around there. As you can see, there's no real cycle paths around here. You're just jammed on dual carriageways and other things, so it's a pretty grim way of getting around the area. So we're stuck here on the dual carriageway, and we have to work our way up the hill essentially. So we go round, cross over the roundabout. There's a bit of a cycle track here, but then it gives up, and there was pavement, and we stuck on the pavement because it was just horrendous. The cars were thrashing past at a hell of a rate, really fast, and so it was my choice to stay on the pavement. Carry on this road. Now, although this road was only single carriageway each way, it was still pretty grim, a lot of traffic, and over the roundabout and carry on further on the pavement. So you can see it's a huge amount of pavement that we cover. This road's just as bad as the rest, and then suddenly the pavement disappears and we're putting up with the traffic. So at this point we thought it was a good time to stop and reevaluate, and then we carried on. As you notice, there's not really much pavement around here. The traffic did lighten up a little bit, but as we head off, we find that the traffic builds up again very soon. So we followed this road round, and you can find us on the map. But the trouble was, at this time of evening, that the traffic's all going very fast, and then we get caught up in this traffic jam that was all waiting to get across the I think it was a railway line. So we rejoined the canal at that point, and that was wonderful. And then it was fairly peaceful heading back home from here. Quite routine, retracing our steps from the way out. It seemed as if going in this direction there was a little bit more overhang from all the shrubs and bushes and things, but we were able to make fairly quick progress, and there were fewer people walking around. So we head back and recross and cross the canal time and time again, and at this point we're following with the canal on our left and back to where the boats are under the bridge, and then back through those fields. Extremely peaceful. A few other cyclists were out at this time of night. A lot of butterbur on the side of the road, side of the canal. Recross again and again. That's one of the nice things about this canal, is that you're crossing from side to side, and it adds a little bit of interest as much as anything else. Most of the bridges are swing bridges, as we said earlier on, which makes them interesting as well. So past the canal boats, and we're up at the top by the pub. Follow along. Still got quite a way to go now on the canal, but it's really easy and certainly a lot more tranquil than the previous part of the journey. So I would recommend just doing a U-E at the far end and working your way back to the beginning. One of the great things about canals is that quite often you get a completely different viewpoint of what it is that you're crossing when you go in the opposite direction. It feels different, and it's often just as enjoyable in a very different way. So we've not got far to go now, and we're back towards where it's a bit more built up, and we're crossing over the canal and rejoining the canal again. That's that place where we have to actually hit the road, and now it's fairly fast, routine trip back to the beginning. I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong. Past all the canal bridges, back into the built-up area, and now we leave and we're heading back towards the car, just round the corner here, and there we go. So as summary of our route, we started at the Aldermaston Wharf, and then we headed up into Newbury, and I would recommend turning around at that point and coming back and just enjoying the ride. There's plenty of space further on that you could go, and a very enjoyable trip it is too. Very nice to do it on a hot sunny day, not maybe so good when it's wet. So if you want to follow us, here we are on our route to the Kennet Avon Canal, and you'll see on the right hand side the export GPS device if you want to download a GPX file. Please leave a comment and a like at the end of this video, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. We're heading off up to Scotland for our next little bit. We've got a few more trips around locally, and then we're going to do Sussex and Kent. So I've got loads and loads still waiting for editing, but I look forward to seeing you again then. Bye.